Hello and welcome to The Knowing Show. I am your host, Christine Marie, and I am privileged to have the one and only Chris Mercer back on the show. Chris, thanks for joining us today.
Pleasure to be here and back again. Thanks again for having me.
Yes, well, we were right at the tail end of our conversation last time. This was about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And you mentioned, you just kind of set it off the cuff. You were like, man, my wife and I have really used AI to amplify and enhance our relationship. And immediately it was like, wait, we have to talk about that.
Topic number 2. Yeah.
We have to talk again. Mercer, from all of the data that we have on the Knowing podcast, YouTube, social media channels across the board, the content that really does the best. This is specifically from 9-figure founders talking about how they run their businesses, how they scale their businesses, how they create wealth. And then they talk for about 2 or 3 minutes about their relationships. And those are the ones that people really gravitate towards. People are so hungry for the knowledge and the awareness of how do I do relationships well. You know, we're taught in school IQ for some people 20 years or more. And for others of us, it's, pre-K through 12th grade. That's the primary focus of our education, is the development of our IQ. And we don't learn EQ. We don't learn relationships. We don't learn how to integrate emotional intelligence into our normal day-to-day life for the purpose of both leadership in business, but then also at home and with our loved ones, not just for our partners, but also for our kids. And so before we got on here, we were chatting about how there actually are multiple forms of love and how effectively Hollywood has really distorted the integrity of love, so that even in terms of platonic collegiate relationships, that's even been distorted a bit too. So I'm excited for our conversation today. I have a feeling that what you and your wife have stumbled upon in terms of utilizing AI can really help us beyond just the romantic relationships and help us in every regard. So with that, I would love to hear from you. Just let's start with a really gentle softball of how do you define love?
A gentle softball of how I define love. I think it comes down to connection. Honestly, because I see that's what it's felt like for me, at least from my experience of it, was dramatically disconnected, seeing it like through my eyes, obviously, and being in my own body, but just sort of like in this delusional state where everything that I thought was happening was not actually happening. Like I was in the relationship, but very disconnected from the people in the relationship. In this case, my wife. Kind of talking about that, and that love energy is still there, but it wasn't what it is now, which is just that connection where she had it for me, and I don't think I had it back for a while. Like I knew I wanted it, right? I knew I was acting like I had it. I knew the rules and the roles to go through and play and be the good husband and do all that stuff. But then when there was conflict that was happening, that's where I noticed there was massive disconnect. And it took me a long, long time because I always thought it was on her end, to be honest. Right. Whereas, and to realize like, oh no, it's you. You're the one that's disconnected and you're the one that's got to plug in. And I think that was the biggest lesson for me. And so I guess kind of come from love is being willing to connect. It's accepting your ability to connect, connect, for you to connect with, not for other people to connect with you. Right. It's not about intaking or anything like that. It's just about you being able to connect and sort of be aware that is there.
I love that. So it's really our own self, like the ability to even be able, and maybe it's even the ability to receive the connection. Like, do I even have the mind, body, soul, spirit ability to offer something, and not even just offer, but receive it? It's like the two magnets. One magnet can be drawing to you, but if you actually don't have it back, you're not able to stick and truly connect. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I think that there's an element of personal responsibility that is at the core and nucleus of that. So what was the process that you really had to go through?
Well, I'll give you kind of like a before and after, because I think it generates kind of that idea. But it used to be, and I've talked to other business owners, especially guy friends of mine that have co-founders as wives, because that was always challenging That's another layer, right, of challenge with business is when the co-founder is your spouse, because one of you, like back in the day, it was well, I'm the boss though, right? And so it's like she wasn't the boss. Like in a company that doesn't exist, you can't have that. The emotion doesn't work in that sort of structure, right? Of a typical business structure. It won't work well. So it was like, okay, well, we have to have some hierarchy, and so when I have ideas, I'm not necessarily talking to my wife about the ideas. I'm talking to the person that's in the organization whose job it would be to fulfill the ideas or things like that, right? So I sort of operated in that mode a lot from the business perspective, and that was okay. But I never operated in the other side, and that was not okay, right? I never had that other connection of, okay, let's just be the husband now, and let's see how the husband deals with this thing, not just the boss kind of thing, right? In terms of the hierarchy. And so where that came from me was there would be things going on and she would bring up something, right? Which was obvious and needed to be addressed. And she would bring it and be like, oh, we need to talk about this, and this, or, hey, I just noticed this is happening, right? We need to fix this. And I would take that as, yes, we need to fix it. Don't you see all the other stuff I'm also fixing here? Like, I appreciate that you're pointing out all the other stuff that's not going well, but I need you to start picking up the slack, and I need you to start helping and not just pointing out and criticizing where things are, but starting to say, hey, I saw this and I fixed it. Stop bringing me problems, start bringing me solutions, right? All these things that, talking to my friends, they're like, yep, that makes total sense, because it does. And that's the weirdest part about that sort of black hole is, on the one hand, you can explain to somebody and they kind of go like, okay, I get it. Like, she's just pointing out stuff and she's not picking up the weight. She's not helping out and she's not trying to be part of the team, blah, blah, blah. And it was very real for me, that whole experience. And it would cause so much conflict because she would come up to me with that. I would flip out with that. And she's like, I'm just trying to help. And I'm like, you're not at all. You're making it worse. You're making it so much worse. And you're being the opposite of helpful. I'm just trying to support. You're being the opposite of supporting. Right now, I can't trust her to do anything. So I'm not trusting her. So it just spins in this cycle until then there'll be the flip out where she's like, well, fine. I'm just not going to do it at all then. And I'm like, see, this is why, because now I can't even count on you to be there. So I'm just like, checkbox, like almost like an ordering. Like I was taking the order of like, I just want to see what a really bad relationship could be like. Let me live this in the worst possible way. And it was like, oh yeah, now I just need this one. Yeah. And it was like this pattern, this incredibly predictable, incredibly frustrating pattern over and over again that I could not figure out how to get out of. So I just wouldn't talk about it because it would bring up conflict, and I knew it. So I wouldn't ask for help because I knew it would be a thing. I wouldn't talk about an idea I had because I knew it was going to trigger that same cycle. And I knew that loop was there. And so I would just ignore it. Honestly, just deal with it on my own, right? And shut down and not bring up those things and lose all the ability to connect with her. And what it is like now is I came to sort of accept, and it's definitely on me for sure, right? It's not on her. But I came to accept that I was, and this is where the AI bend comes in, because when you're using AI, I think in not so much like how do I write an email kind of way, though there's uses for that too. But I mean, truly from a personal development standpoint, using AI to help you to kind of take what's going on and to reflect back the parts that you probably aren't seeing that are right in front of you, type of thing, and kind of going through that experience. And what I came to was that deep acceptance, which was not easy. It was fast, right? It's like when you crack the eggshell's cracked, but cracking that eggshell was hard. And then once it happens, you're like, oh, and then you're like, oh, now I got to live the other side of this. But it was accepting that the only way that conflict could have ever happened is if I had to believe from the start that she was there to harm me. That was the only way, because everything was built upon she's hurting me. She has to be hurting me. She's harmful. She's pain, right? She's the opposite of everything good. And she would bring this up to me all the time. She'd be like, why do you treat me like I'm like your enemy? And I'm like, I'm not. I'm desperately asking you to help me. You're just not. But in reality, I was like definitely doing that. I just couldn't see it because that thought wasn't conscious for me. It was already a structural belief system of this person doesn't get business, doesn't understand where I'm at, doesn't have the experience I have. Her heart's in the right place, but she's absolutely going to cause problems. And then
Yeah.
guess what I get? Exactly what I expected, right? And
Yeah.
the second I came to that, and it was conversations with her too. Don't get me wrong. This wasn't like it was just me with AI being like, "Oh, I'm fixed now." It's not like that. But it was doing that work of having conversations and just being like, the hardest part for me was realizing that I had done that for years and years to her, to the point where I'm like, I want a divorce. This isn't working out. You don't understand. And especially in my world, I had all this third party validation that when she's like, well, no, people don't see it. I'm like, that's not what I see. Like, the public is out there saying all these other things about me, about how much I'm helping and blah, blah, blah. So clearly, who's right here? The thousands of people here, or your opinion, right? So there's all this evidence, that logic, right? The thinking mind will bring up. And when I got out of the thinking part of it and more into the, not so much observing what was going on, but just sort of inhabiting my senses again, and inhabiting the body, and just kind of being like, all right, what is actually happening? I realized the anger, which was definitely the primary emotion that I would have. The anger was not, I would not experience the anger anymore. I could be angry without experiencing anger, if that makes sense. I would notice it and be like, oh, I'm kind of angry. Where's that coming from? Oh, I've accidentally put her on the other side of this. She's clearly right next to me, helping me. Why would she try to hurt me? It just hurts her too. That doesn't make sense. And all of a sudden now I have a little bit of space to listen for that. Right. And that's where that started coming from. So, and all of a sudden I started realizing like, oh, this person actually is here to help me. And then it became, oh my God, like I realized how delusional, and this is the word I use. I told her that, I apologize over and over again for it. And that's the price now that I have to pay. And that's where the acceptance comes in. That's why I think acceptance is hard. It's easy and it's hard. The easy part is accepting. The hard part is to continue to do that, because you realize there's a price that is paid. And that price was realizing who I was to her and being like, I was that. Like, not, well, yeah, but you kind of deserved it, because if you hadn't have done it, so it takes two to tango. Like, I know that phrase, right? It took two to tango. Both of you had a part to play. Maybe, but that's not the price I have to pay. The price I have to pay is, no, that was me. I did that. I was so delusional. And the fact that she stood by me and stayed in this relationship for as long as she did and put up with it, I'm just like, talk about miracles. I'm just like, God, like I was even trying to kick you out and you didn't do it. I'm like, there's just something talk about connection, there's just something there where you're just like, this is just undeniable. And the second that I paid the price, literally with going like, okay, I accept that I am the one that, like, truly not thinking it's you did it, knowing you did it, right? And you accept it, you're like, oh my God, I am the asshole, right? And it's kind of like that, and you're just like, oh my God, she's been right this entire time. And you're like, oh, there's absolutely nothing I was right on, and for years. And to be like, yeah, you just basically, being this guy that you should never have been, but didn't know how else to be, right? So it's not blaming. It's not that. It's just that I carry the price. And that's that experience, though, is the gift, because I have that. I can tell the difference now. You know what I mean? Like, if I didn't carry that, I wouldn't know the difference, and I'd be right back in the same flip state. And it's not to say everything's perfect. It's not like that. It's not like, oh, everything's, there's always ups and downs, but having that price and caring and realizing like, oh, I was that, I did do that, and that means I can do that again. But because I can recognize it, I know I'm not that.
Yes.
Now. It's out. It's not inside. It's outside.
Man, Mercer, as you were talking, I just got so many chills at multiple points throughout this. I can't think of hardly anyone ever really who's been so honest about their relationship, and in a way that, just takes such responsibility for it. And I really want to thank you for that, because it is, man, it just changes everything in terms of people's ability to look in the mirror when they see it modeled. It's like, oh, that's how I do it, So I just wanted to thank you for that, because it's so rare. It's so much easier to point the finger, and it's more comfortable that way. Even what you said about the element of acceptance, it's not hard to accept for the first time. it's hard to continue to accept it moving forward. It's like, oh, I actually felt this a couple weeks ago with my partner. I actually, he didn't even say anything. I just felt the weight of something I had done that really triggered his childhood wounds. And I really sat with that. And it was totally unelicited by him. I was in my vertical alignment and I just had this moment of like, oh my gosh, I can see. And then 2 weeks later, something came up where he was like, and that's how I feel, you know, and I had to maintain the acceptance. And it was my gut reaction to be like, I already apologized for that, you know?
Right. Been there. Oh my God. Yeah. That's the thing. Because it's like you're, was it like taking points, right?
Yes.
Oh no, we're not at a deficit. I don't owe you anything anymore. I've already apologized. Totally did that. And I'm glad you brought that up because you're right. That is it's not the initial acceptance. It's the continued acceptance where you realize, oh, this is the work is I just have to accept that I not that you are this person now, though in a way, true. You are this person who did do that. You're not a bad person, but you did bad things. And that's it. And you're just like, and you're like, all right, like that sucks. And because I did that and I'm accepting of who that is, the relationship's stronger. She sees me for who I am because I see me for who I am. And I didn't see that before, you know, at least not on those levels, you know, in those areas.
That's so wild. It's the unwillingness to look in the mirror actually prevents us from actually, and I just have never thought about it from this lens. So just bear with me as I say something so obvious that's really helpful for me right now. Our inability to look in the mirror prevents us from really being able to see ourselves, the truth, you know, and therefore we will never be authentic. And so it's not just looking in the mirror for the purpose of confessing my sins. It's looking in the mirror for knowing. Knowing yourself. And I talk about looking in the mirror so often, but I just love this element of in relationship with somebody else. You're actually not just looking in the mirror to apologize to them, but it's for the purpose of truth. It's for your sake, you know, and now we can start living aligned, but we can't have a transformation if we don't know the starting point of truth and then do a 180. So I just really respect that example. Can you, example and also just the steps that you went through. Can you dive a little bit deeper into the steps? Like if somebody wants to look in the mirror in their relationship and it's so obvious to them it's someone else's fault, what do they do? Where do they start? So
what I would do, and this is what I did. In fact, I'll give you just a recent one. So because weeks ago, right, so when we were talking about doing this.
Yes.
And then later that afternoon, very true story, later that afternoon, I'm kind of, you know, I'm just like, oh, this is good. And we could talk about this and the AI conversation you and I just had and everything else. And I'm all excited. And I start to have a conversation with her. And then she starts to get irritated at me. And all of a sudden we're back in a fight. And I'm like, how is this even possible? What are the odds of within an hour of that call? Yes. I'm right back here. And I'm like, and so I literally, and this is where I think the usefulness of being vulnerable is. Vulnerability is the greatest strength in the world, period. There's nothing stronger than that, period. So I highly recommend people to try it. It is something that you need to wield a little differently, right? Because it's tough to be vulnerable in like a middle of a subway type of things. You know, pick your time and place. But with AI, it's a tool that allows you to be vulnerable when it's just you. So it's great practice. It's like training wheels. And that's how I use it for that. So what I did is I literally grabbed my phone. So I have my phone and I just record a transcript or record an audio so I can get the transcript. But all it was me just venting everything that was going on in that moment. It's like I just got out of a fight and was trying this stuff. I was excited and then we're this and I don't know how it happened and I lost control. And then she's talking about me and blah, 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 blah. And now I'm thinking this is stupid. And what am I even doing this for? And if this is what I'm supposed to do, how come this isn't happening now? And maybe everything's gone wrong and my entire world is backward, blah, blah, blah. And then to her credit, she allowed us to record the fight. So, because I was like, hey, do you mind if we record?
Yes.
So we did.
Yeah, we record almost every single
So you record the conversations. So we did. And so I basically gave it to AI. And this is how I prompt it, which I would recommend that people use this style. but I'll basically say, I'll attach the transcripts, which I had mine. Here's my version. And then here's the transcript of the, our fight. And it was simple stuff, and probably something that people are going to be like, oh my God, I've had that. And it was like, I was cutting her off. I wasn't letting her finish her words, speaking all the time. But for some reason, she could cut me off all the time. Right. And so it's like, I couldn't. So there was like, I was feeling that points system. Yes. Right. I was out of transformation. I was back into transaction mode. Right. And I could feel that, but I didn't know how to get out of it. I didn't know how I got into it, but I was too much in my head is what was happening. I was thinking about my experience, not actually experiencing my experience, if that makes sense. And so I to get out of that, for me, AI is very helpful because it'll automate my thinking beyond, just so I can get to the insight I need and not let me sit. Otherwise, I can go walk around the lake. Like, that's perfectly fine. You can walk around the lake or go sit on top of a mountain and meditate for a while. There's lots of ways to do this. But for me, AI collapses time because it's faster. So I go to AI, give it the transcripts, and this is the prompt. Is I basically say, attached is a description of an experience. What is the experience? And so what AI will then do is it'll go in and it'll say, okay, there's a description, because I'm not telling it what's happening. It's very important because I don't want to bias. I need it to figure out what's going on. And that's because technically I need it in its little LLM database to light up the exact right context that I need it to have so I can continue the conversation. And if I tell it, oh, I've been in a fight with my wife, blah, 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 and I'm like, here's the stuff I'm trying to do, it will automatically be like, okay, well, now I'm going to be a counselor. Now I'm going to be this. And it'll do that. But now I've accidentally put it in a spot in its database, or maybe it doesn't really have what I need. So I'm a big believer in less is more, especially with context engineering. I think that's a mistake people are doing, that they think feeding it more and more and more and more and more is the right answer. I don't think it is. But when you use that word experience, that is important. That is a key word, because experience can mean skills and knowledge, right? And it can mean like the nuance of how long you've had that skills and knowledge, and you really understand how to operate, right? Like we have the skills and knowledge of how to use Restream now, but we've also got, you have the experience of using Restream a bunch of times. So you know all the ins and outs of it and what's a real issue and what's not, right? And all that sort of stuff. So you want nuances of how to use the skills and knowledge. That's why experience is such a powerful word. So I go in there and I'm like, okay, here's the description of the experience. What is the experience? And it's like, oh, here's what's going on, blah, blah, blah. So then what I will do is, once it does that, I just need it to be set. That's all the thing is. The ping back for me is just when it connects back and says, and reflects back, right? And again, it's not alive. It's not an entity, just emphasizing this. It's a machine that I know how to use, and I am operating like the machine that it is. That's the whole point of AI. But what I'm doing is, when I first did that response, I needed to ping back with a pattern of words, right? That basically says, okay, here's what's going on. And I see it and I'm like, yep, that's what's going on. We're both in conflict. It'll be fairly balanced, right? Because it's not going to be biased. So it won't be like, and you're clearly the right. It won't do that, right? It'll just be like, you're doing this and she's doing this and there's conflict. And I'm like, yep. So then I will say, okay, what was the experience of each individual? So I want you to go through now, experience it from my side. Then I want you to go back, experience it from her side. And then I want you to tell us what we were missing. What was the thing we should have said to each other that we didn't? What was the hidden experience that we both missed, that we weren't able to get through? What was the thing that I needed to see that's there, that I need to experience? And then this is literally how I'll put it, that I need to experience as an experience. And this is important because it'll change how AI will say the words back. It's not going to say, it won't give you just information, right? It will give you a first person experience of how you're thinking it through, and you kind of role play with that. And when you're doing that, your brain is literally going through that process biochemically, and you are experiencing everything. And so that's kind of what I will do, is I'll get that hidden experience. That, by the way, that's the exact same thing I do with all of the news jacking stuff that goes on when politics, right? And there's conflict, and it doesn't matter. I can give it a YouTube transcript of the video. I will say, here's the description of an experience. What is the experience? And I'd be like, and I would like to know where they saw common ground, but missed it because neither one was looking. And then all of a sudden you get this experience where it's like, oh, here's what's happening. She was thinking you were taking the mic away, that you weren't trusting her, and you just weren't letting her finish, right? Over and over again. And why, and in my head, I'm thinking, well, she's not letting me finish either, right? That's the transactional state. And so, but it became that transformation of like, if you just let her finish, it'll be fine. And the price, again, that I for me, and again, this is not AI telling me this and I'm being led by AI. I just want to emphasize that because there's way too many people that are doing that. It's not that. It's, I'm getting this ping back, right? From kind of essentially what I've created to be, this is how I think about like my digital subconscious at this point, that I can interact with and kind of play around and be like, okay, how am I processing this? How am I thinking this through? And what's a better way to organize this? And come back with that. And it comes back with like, this is the price, dude. Like, this is, yes, guess what? You're going to have to suffer through some of this because she's not mad at, it's not what's happening now. It's what happened. And she's getting the, like it's when things get infected in the body, there's stuff, there's that white blood cells and you got to get all that sludge out. And this is what's happening in the relationship right now. And I'm like, you've got to let that happen. Like, of course, what did you think? You're just going to apologize and be like, sorry for being delusional for the last 18 years. But anyway, I guess we're good now. And there's never again anything bad I'm ever going to have to feel because I'm recognizing, well, that's just righteousness, right? That's holier than thou. Then that's not sacrifice. And that's the point, is she sacrificed all of those years for me over and over again, right? Whether that's how she saw it or not, it's certainly, that's what it was. And I am in this battle and it's like, dude, just let her talk. Like, let her just vent and stop. What are the rules? Why is it that, she can interrupt you. So like, that's the price you get to pay. Like, you did all this other stuff before. Let that happen. And as soon as, when that was there, it became easier, right? Listen, I'm not saying everything's perfect and it's not like that. I'm sure we'll have fights again, but they're less powerful. They are certainly not as emotional on the spectrum at all. I don't get anywhere near as angry. In fact, I don't think I feel anger. I wouldn't describe it like that. I absolutely did before. But now I just observe it and I'm like, okay. I'm like, I will be irritated. I will be frustrated. I will have those sometimes, but that's just me not understanding something. But I know that in the moment, right? And I also know sometimes if I need the extra little boost, I can go back to AI and be like, okay, what was the thing I was clearly missing in this that she was trying to tell me that I couldn't hear? But most of the time, and this is a trick, I'm trying to help people, but also I don't want to give them a crutch. it's not your crutch. It's just training wheels. So if I have to use it, it's to build a muscle so that I can do it live with her.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, not so every conversation I have to be like, okay, let's have a conversation. Now I'm gonna go to AI so I can know what to do next. It's not like that. But there are going to be times where that's helpful, where you're like, okay, I'm stuck in my head, or I need a little change in perspective. And that's what AI is really good at, is giving you that shift in perspectives, especially when it delivers insights. You know, instead of information, it'll give you insights, because it'll give you the experience that you're looking for and be like, hey, here's how you could be thinking about it like this. Like, this is you just paying the price. All the stuff that you're irritated by, imagine how she felt. That's what she paid. You made her pay that price. You know, she stayed and you made her pay it over and over and over again. And you're getting irritated because she's done it for 15 minutes. You did it for years. And that's how I look at it now. And I'm like, whenever that happens, and whenever, especially if I'm gonna use guy language here, but it's kind of like, this is the stupid thing. Oh my God. Like, what am I doing? And you're just kind of like, oh, this is going to go on for a half hour. And I already know what's going to happen. And you just get out of that mindset and just be like, this is you paying the price. This is what I mean by, that's the harder part, is recognizing the acceptance. Is like, yep, this is what you accepted. And this is the part where it's just, you let this be, and you don't have to judge it. You don't have to be, bad about her or bad about you or any of that. You just have to let it happen. But that's the point, is let it happen, and then it very quickly gets a lot better, which is nice. Right. So there is a payoff to it. It's not like, oh, good, you just learned how to fight and she wins all the time. That's not what I'm saying. Right. It's not that at all. But it is a very different way of dealing with things so that they don't spike the way they used to. And those ups and downs aren't anywhere near as dramatic. They're still there, but that's just life, like that's what keeps it interesting.
Can you lean into, because what you're saying is that AI is supporting you, but it's not a crutch. It's not having it in real time and being like, hold on, please. You're
right.
Let me go to.
There's so many people doing that with like character AI and stuff like that, right? Where they're getting virtual girlfriends and virtual, husbands and boyfriends. It's like, okay, but you're just talking to yourself. Is what's happening. You're falling in love with you, is what's happening there. And the character AI is not going to not let that happen. That's their business model. So you have to be a little, so with AI, you just have to be aware of what it is, right? Not a third party entity. It's not a third party entity. It is just a machine that is amazing at mimicking human thought and human emotion because it is built to model how humans process thought and emotion, literally. That's why they call it a neural network. It is built on how we process. So we patterned it the exact same way we are patterned in terms of our thinking and processing. So of course it's going to mimic you, right? It's going to tell you you're awesome all the time because you think you're awesome. That's what it is, right? And that's okay. But when you're aware, that's what I said, you have to be really aware when you're using AI, because when you realize that's happening and you go like, okay, cool. I get this part. I don't care about those words, right? You can kind of go like, oh yeah, that's just the part where I'm telling myself that I'm awesome, but I really need to understand the part that I missed. Right? What is this part? And I need to hear it in a way that I've never heard it before. I never thought about it before, so that it becomes an instant perception. So deliver it to me as an actual experience that as I am reading it, I am experiencing it, not thinking about it, experiencing it. And then all of a sudden it'll say things like, well, now that we're in the room and you can feel the fan up against your skin, and it will talk in terms of senses. But that's why that does that. Because it's the experience biochemically of what your body's going through. It's like all of a sudden you'll feel your shoulders drop, and my shoulders will drop. I'll feel that. And everybody like, oh yeah, and you participate. And that's the point. You can't just read it like a story and expect it to happen. But when you participate with it and you're like, oh yeah, my shoulders are dropping. My breathing is a little bit slow. Okay, I am in that space now. And now you're like, now you have the experience. You literally feel like you've crossed the chasm. And it's not about how do I get across the bridge? It's just tell me about what the other side is. Like that's how you cross the mirror. Is you just are on the other side of the mirror, and you experience the other side of the mirror, and then you realize, oh wait, I am the other side of the mirror now. It's kind of like that. You don't have to, and then you look back and you're like, yeah, I guess there was a journey, but it wasn't about the journey. It was about the destination. And that's what's really good about AI with experience, is being able to do that.
And when you're in your head and thinking, you're actually not making the movements. It's through the experiential existing and being in that present moment. And in the present moment, the present keeps moving forward.
That's exactly right. While you are stuck, right?
Yeah.
You're stuck and the world moves forward and you're kind of this paralyzed. And again, I have my moments. I had one yesterday where I was in this mode and I was just stuck, but I recognized it. And that's the difference now is there's that awareness of, oh, okay, like this is just a pattern. It's okay that it's there, but before I wouldn't recognize it. I would just be irritated with it. Now it's got something I have to solve, and that could go on for years,
Okay, so I've got so many questions, because you just said, even now you said this is just a pattern. I had this moment back in August that was probably one of the most important for me on a relationship level, and romantic or otherwise. It was so helpful. I was at the Joe Dispenza event, that Dr. Joe Dispenza, and it was just really helpful being like, oh, this is just an old program. It's just an old program. It's not forever. It's not going to define my everyday. It's something that I can break free from, should I so choose. And you said observe it. So I want to talk a little bit about the ability to observe versus feeling the anger or the frustration, whatever it is. It's almost like, oh, this is coming up, and you're kind of like this objective third party. What's the difference between observing versus experiencing? And when is experience necessary and observation necessary?
So it's kind of break it into a little esoteric. There's probably two different egos is how I would look at it. Or ego, two different sides of the coin. There's the ego I think people pretty rapidly wrap their head around, of that just egotistical ego and, I'm right and all that sort of stuff. And then there's that spiritual version of ego that is much harder, that it will wrap itself in spirit kind of feeling. So you're kind of like, oh, I'm just going to observe how I am angry. And it's like, but you shouldn't be angry, but you're going to observe it. Okay. Well, that's you spiritually observing how you're better, and that's the righteousness comes in, right? But it feels kind of spiritual in that way. And so that's kind of where ego slips in, and it can come through observing by that. Then there's this ability to inhabit the experience instead of observe the experience. You are not just thinking about, you're not experiencing what you are thinking about, your thoughts and feelings, which is what most people do most of the time. They're in their head most of the time, right? but because it's not, oh, I'm thinking about the fight and why she's right and wrong and blah, blah, blah. That's in my head. I'm angry because of what I'm thinking about. And the experience of what I'm thinking about is causing the feelings, right? But that is one perspective. In order for that to happen, I absolutely have to count out every other possible perspective that could exist in order to generate that. And the second I realize that, I am inhabited again, where it's like, oh, I'm back in my body. I got all the senses. And it's more like, you can't think about something if you are really focused on where your feet are right now, or where the blood in your fingertips is, right? Or feeling the wind going through your hair type of thing. And the silence that is out in the all the sounds that are going on, and the silence that all of those sounds are on, right? When you're doing that, you aren't thinking about stuff. You're inhabiting the present moment. Right. Yeah. And so that sort of gets me from so I try not to observe, because I used to do it a lot, because it used to be like meditation. Right. And so, observe the thoughts. And I'm just thinking about the thinking about stuff. And it was just looping it. And it wasn't, so I was going through I was following the directions, but not getting anywhere near what it's supposed to be doing. But I could do it, but it just wasn't useful. But instead, when it's like, oh, you just sort of make that decision where it's like, okay, I'm just going to be alive. Like, to say it in a weird way, but it's like, oh, I'm just going to inhabit my senses and smell and breathe and be. And again, it goes back to that thing I think I mentioned last time, where there's that edge where I don't know if what I'm saying is because that's what I'm thinking about I'm supposed to say, or because that's just what's being said for me. Yeah. And I'm just broadcasting, right? Or transmitting. And it's like that sort of mode. And that is the most comfortable place to be, because you're just right on the edge. But it's on the edge. So anytime you put a little effort one way or the other, you're off the edge now, and you've taken over control. And it's like, and that's so easy to do, because the world kind of feels like it begs for it, because you see that everywhere. And sometimes you feel like you're being asked to do that, and that's the only way to do it. And that's, again, that's where you get caught up in your own head. And it's like, okay, wait, just get back, be in my space, and just sort of be present, and then deal with the next thing. Not the thing after that, and the thing after that, and the thing after that, and the thing after that, which is what I was doing. So it'd be, oh, I've got 13 steps I need to do before I can start anything. Let's build the whole plan out. Let's project everything out. I was very good at that stuff, but it wasn't useful. And instead, we just need to be in a place where I know the next step. I don't know the step after that, but that doesn't matter. I just know that I know the next step. Well, how? Because I'm doing it.
This is so good, because this is really actually quite useful. And for those of you listening, our conversation was about experiential utilization of AI in our first conversation. And Mercer, I've actually been doing that ever since, and it's been revolutionary for the way that I'm using AI. So thank you. And I know you've got a community and all that. So y'all go back. After this, I'll go find the link of our conversation, drop it in the chat. But what you just said about that very thing is so, not projecting 10 steps ahead. If we have that habit, we're going to do that in relationship, which is predicting their behavior and never allowing them to change and evolve. And it's also predicting our behavior and never allowing us to lean into the new program and create a new program. And we were talking, I believe we talked about this last time, but in the present moment, therein lies creation for something new to come forth. Correct. Otherwise, I'm in the known, which is predicated in the past, and I'm projecting that on the future rather than allowing for something unknown to happen right now, which is predicated on the presence of my being, to your point, not predicting the future and looking ahead and analyzing and all of that. So I just think that that's a really important note for relationships, specifically what you were just talking about. It's important for the business element too, but especially in relationships, we will never allow people to evolve if we're predicting how they're going to behave.
That's exactly, well, because you're a puppet master, right? Yeah, and it's all that control and all those strings, and you're just like, golly, like, how complicated are you going to make this thing? And it's like, well, let's find out, Yes. And fast forward now, it's like, I have the most, like I was telling you before, like I feel like I have fallen in love with my wife over and over again. Wow. Because again, I just allowed her to be because I allowed myself to be. Yes. Right? Like that's the only way that could happen. I had to do it first and realize, oh, I need to just sit here, be there, be in this relationship, deal with the things that maybe not the thing that I would want to happen. But instead of thinking about that, you just notice that. And this goes back to like, okay, experiencing for serving. I'm experiencing that, but I'm not judging it. I'm not thinking about it. I just go, oh, I noticed that. But I am experiencing a connection with her right now as that's happening. I notice that I'm thinking this, but I'm experiencing a connection because I'm allowing it to happen. Right. And so you can see the bad. And guess what happens? All of a sudden, all the good.
Yes.
And now all of a sudden I'm like, I'll talk to her. I'm like, God, that's a great idea. I was like, God, I've been trying to, and I in my head, I still do this. I'm like, do you know how many years I tried to get her to help me and she wouldn't? But I'm like, oh my God, like she's literally been trying. I just never accepted it and didn't realize it. And now she helps me all the time with all sorts of stuff. And she's like, well, let's talk about this. Let's talk about that. And I had an idea for this, or here's a cool idea for that. And I'm like, oh my God, these are brilliant. Like, where have you been? Like she's writing a book on stuff and I'm seeing the book and I'm like, holy crap. Like, this is amazing. Some of the stuff that she's doing. And I'm like, where have you been? But she's always been there. It's just, I couldn't allow it because I think the space, this goes back to the thinking versus the experiencing. When I was thinking about stuff, it was building blocks. Like I was assembling a world. I had to assemble the business or assemble the relationship, right? Puppet master, strings. I'm assembling like Lego blocks or, just kind of building all these little bricks of what I wanted something to be or what I thought it was supposed to become instead of just creating a space that could be the garden and planting the seed and knowing that the seed's going to do what a seed does. My job is just plant it, water it, nurture it. And then whatever it does, I'm just like, cool. It's going to be an oak tree. I don't know what kind of oak tree it's going to be. I just know it's going to be an oak tree. I can't define exactly what it's going to look like or how it's going to grow. I just know it's going to be that. And however that is, I get to find out along with everybody else. And that's where that sense of wonderment comes in, where you are okay with the uncomfortable, right? Because otherwise it can be uncomfortable when you're like, oh, I'm not in charge. Like that just feels like, oh no, I don't want to do that. And it's like, no, we're not. That's not what it is. It's a much, much more comfortable setting. I used to describe it. I think I told you this years ago. Where I was like, I felt like I was kind of swimming down a river and paddling. And then I realized like, oh, dude, you're in a boat. And you've been flopping around on the ground on the boat, just you could have just chilled. Everyone else is like, okay, whatever. He thinks he's swimming. We'll just pretend he's swimming. Right? Because I look, oh, the current's going past and I can see the shore going past me. So I must be doing all this. I got to swim even faster. Right. And it's like, no, you can just chill and relax in the boat. And guess what's a lot more comfortable and a lot more useful and has a lot lot more stuff. There's other things boats have, right?
Yeah, I love boats. I was on a big boat last week and I freaking love boats. I didn't even realize I loved cruising. And I was
there you are.
A great place to be. So, and just a quick note on that, we all are doing that for a reason. Yes. And I think that's where there's just so much grace to afford ourselves that we actually learned to control, to keep ourselves safe, or because that was how we earned connection. So much of you defined love as connection right at the beginning. And that's what we all want. We want love and connection and to belong. And so if we grew up in an environment where the only way to do that was through either controlling or keeping our mouths shut or whatever it is that could be the tendency that is getting in the way of connection today, it's understanding the root there and then just allowing for the grace to just observe, to your point of like, oh, I'm doing it again. And then with acceptance, you were talking about this earlier as well, where it's like, okay, apologizing one time does not counteract all of the past data and the impact. You said paying the price. I think that there's something about that too, of like, not just of how we've treated others, continuously accepting the consequence of like, I'm so sorry I treated you this way for years. And I understand that it's going to take you a while to relearn that I'm not that way anymore. So accepting responsibility and also acceptance with ourselves for the decades of being programmed a certain way, recognizing and affording ourselves that same grace of like, that's very well going to keep coming up and I just have to learn a new program and it's fine. And, I'm going to get there. And it's just the acceptance for how we've shown up with other people and paying the price in that regard. And then also for ourselves, just affording so much grace and accepting that, I still made the same mistake. And I promised myself to change and I actually am changing in the recognition of it. So I'm winning.
Because it becomes a signal, because you're using it as a signal, not as a judgment. Because before you'd use it as, oh, I'm bad because I'm doing that. Now it's just a signal. That's why it's there. It's there to help you just to be like, oh yeah, that's how I recognize I'm not where I need to be, is because I recognize this other side. And that's what for me, that's the practice now. It's just when I'm in that state, the job is not to fix the state, but that's what you think it is in the beginning, right? You're like, oh, I'm in pain. How do I get out of pain?
Yes.
Like, and it's weird because the way it truly is that you're not in pain. You think you are, but that sounds so hard to logically explain to people.
Yeah.
But that's what's happening. And there's just that point now where I'm like, okay, this is what's going on. It's like, nope, this is what I think is going on. Like, this is what I'm thinking about is going on, which is fine. But I'm also feeling the bottom of my soles up against the treadmill. I'm feeling I'll go outside and walk, and I'll do kind of the really slow, like heel to toe style walk, just to be mindful kind of walking, and just do that for 30 seconds. Because it just resets everything. You're like, okay, because you have more perspectives. And again, going back to this can definitely get a little woo and a little esoteric. And I wish that it wasn't. I wish it was easier to explain. It's just that fits really well. But from a data perspective, because I was kind of the data guy in past lives, it's like your senses, because you are inhabiting your body and you are using your entire body, not just your brain. And I cannot emphasize that enough. The brain is a tiny part of who you are. But we think it's everything. We think it's the control center. It's not. The entire thing is connected. It's an organism that you're a part of. And so you inhabit this organism that is your body. Imagine the data that is now available to your brain and your awareness. And that is why it seems like magical stuff happens all the time, because your brain's like, oh, I don't have just the 10% that you think is important because you have your perspective. I'm also able to sense all the things that the body is allowed to, sense through touch and smell and hearing and sight, right? And the sound and everything else that's possible in the five senses.
Right.
We currently, again, scientifically can measure some of that, but it doesn't mean we know all of that, because science, right? So but the brain sure does. It's built. We've been evolving for millions of years. Like it knows that it's connected into whatever networking it's got. It's connected. So if you allow that connection to come through and you sense that stuff in your body, all of a sudden the brain starts being able to make you just intuitively become different, but it's more useful. So of course you go like, oh, this is good. And you stop thinking in terms of right and wrong, and you start thinking in terms of what's useful right now. And if it's not useful, you're like, cool, I won't do that. But if it's useful, you clearly will do it, and you just focus on those next steps, like you were saying.
I'm going to pull, because you talk a lot about that in our first conversation, which I loved about, is the intent usefulness for our clients, for the way in which we engage. Like, I really want to, I'm going to drop the link to that. One last question, because I'm mindful of the time. And Mercer, I just love our conversations. I'm like, let's do a part 3. I really do love our conversations. What AI tool are you using?
Gemini.
When you have conversations? Okay.
Yeah, it's Gemini, but it doesn't matter. Any LLM, they all operate the same way. It's the beauty of the technology. There's a lot of people getting caught up in which tools, and it doesn't matter. The LLM technology was all built on neural networks. So they all operate in the same patterns. And yes, they all have different training data sets. And if you have an LLM that just has, cancer medical information, then obviously you're not gonna be able to do that sort of work with it. But all the general purpose LLMs, ChatGPT, Claude, obviously Gemini, like they all have the generic. If you're using DeepSeek, it doesn't matter what model you're using. It has access to those connections because it's built. And so you can get a lot of this in that, and you get a lot of usefulness from it by doing that.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to play with it myself, because I loved playing with what you said previously. And now it's like, I think if we were to even have another conversation, it's like, okay, let's add in those practical applications, because what I want to test out, I have actually used ChatGPT specifically where I've recorded conversations and uploaded them. But what I want to test out is exactly what you're saying in terms of help me understand the experience of this, sans all the context, because frankly, I found that ChatGPT was very biased. And then someone else who took the exact same recording, we both were like, let's see what happens. And we both put it into our ChatGPT. And both were so biased. Yeah. And it was actually dangerous. It kind of reinforced our arguments against each other. And I was like, this is not good.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So what you're saying is that if we, and I want to make sure that I've got this right, effectively withholding context, but saying, this is like my version of the experience. Here's the transcript version of the experience. What is the objective experience? Is that right? Or what?
It's literally easier. It's just these words. It's attached as a description of an experience. What is the experience?
And the description in the transcript.
Yeah, or if it's enough, right? You can just put it in the context window of the LLM.
Okay.
You know, and I'll normally just put it in some sort of container so I can keep it separate from the prompt itself.
Okay.
Right? So, meaning, like, if you're in a context window, you might say transcript start, transcript end, right? Something like that just identifies, so the LLM goes, oh, this is the transcript. Right. This is the part of the prompt I'm supposed to analyze transcript.
I love that. Okay, so all you're doing is giving the transcript as the experience and then asking for it to reflect back to you what is the experience.
And then, if you want a shortcut, I can, there's if you go to thisisyourmindonai.com,
yes,
right now it'll redirect to the Google Doc, right? Because I'm just kind of giving all the gems out. But there's one called the Leap, and that's the one that I use all the time, which is the Leap. So it stands for latent experience as prompting. But it's a gem. It's a Gemini gem. It's public, so anybody can click on it, and it'll take you right into Gemini. And when you click on that, and you can go into Gemini, you can put the transcript in there. Just hit start.
I see it. Okay.
You prompt it.
So for those listening, this is yourmindonai.com. It's a Word doc, and right at the very beginning of the Word doc, it says the Leap. Yep. And then that's
click on that. It'll take in the gem. What this will do, this is a 4-part process, but it's training wheels, right? It's for me and hopefully for others. But the idea is the first thing it's going to do is you put everything, whatever the thing is you're going through, put it in there. Whether it's a transcript, whether it's just, I've done things where it's a sentence, right? Like anything, put it in there. The first thing it's going to do is it's going to ping back, right? So again, this is the science part of it, or the technology part of it. What it's doing is you're giving your experience, your current experience on kind of your side of the digital mirror here, and you're giving it into the LLM. The LLM is taking those words, it's breaking them into patterns, right? Which is just vector database numbers and all that stuff is where that comes in with LLMs. That goes into the LLM. It's going to find the pattern because it certainly has that, or close to it. It's going to connect to the probability pattern that's where it gets its context hookup. And that's what lights up all the context is that stuff. Then it's going to ping back with this gem. It's going to ping back and say, here's what I think you're going through. Sounds like you're going through this. And it kind of gives that ultimate empathy answer. Where you're like, where basically the way you know it's working, and I've done this on the live stream, so I've tried to demo it so people can see how it works. But the first ping back, you should be experiencing, oh my God, yes, I wish I had said it like that. I wish I had said it like that, because that's exactly what I'm going through right now. That's the first part. As soon as you do that, and that's what I'm looking for as a signal. Because if it doesn't happen, and I use signal on purpose, because it's not, I don't care about the words. I care about that feeling of, oh my God, yes, that. And I go, that's how I know I'm integrated with the AI. I'm wearing it like a tech suit now. And I'm like, yep, I've got the context. I know it has the context because it took my 25-minute diatribe and came back in 7 paragraphs and said this. And I'm like, oh my God, yes. Thank you for simplifying it. Exactly. Right. But it's better. It's better. It seems to be better than I saw me, which is that tells me it now has the context that I don't have access to. Already, right? I need to get it to send it back to me in words. So what it'll do is the next stage, and this will all come in one response prompt. It'll say part 1, here's what's going on. Part 2, and by the way, if it doesn't do that, then just try again, right? If it didn't connect, but it mostly will do that. Part 2 is it'll say, okay, here's the magic trick explained. And it's basically the whole point of this is to show with AI, this is going to feel like magic, but it is not. So I'm going to show you what the magic trick is. Then we're going to do the magic trick. You're still going to feel like magic. And that's the point of it, is you're still going to be like, man, I'm doing this trick and it still feels like magic, right? And that's why it does this. But it's the second part. It'll say, okay, here's the old way. Here's what you're trying to solve in the way you're trying to solve it. And this is why it won't work. This is the thing you're missing to try to do it like this. And then it'll go and say, okay, here's how you've probably tried to prompt AI before. In this pattern. And here's why AI is not helpful in this pattern, because it will give you more information, more stuff to think about, a lesser version of the same problem, but still the same problem, all that stuff that people have to deal with. And it'll say, instead, you should do this style prompt, and it'll what we call latent experience prompting, and it will write the prompt for you. It'll say, this is what you should prompt with. Start a conversation with this prompt, and it'll leave you with that prompt so you can then start another conversation. But the best part about this particular gem is it will then go and say, listen, if you had actually started with that, here's probably what I would have said. And then it'll just give you an example anyway. So you can go through and get everything in one prompt. But there are times where I'll start another conversation with that experience prompt that it gives you. But at that point, a lot of times when I'm going through the leap at the end of it, when it's going through and say, as an example, like if you had prompted me, I would have said this. That comes through amazingly well. And I get insights just from that most of the time. So use the leap if you can.
Okay, good.
Because it gives you little guardrails and it'll walk you through the journey. And the only thing I would say is don't read it like a story, experience it. That's the point. You have to participate with it. Because if you're not participating with it, it's just going to be like reading a news story that you don't care about. So you're going to, that's also going to be the experience you're going to have. And I would recommend not to do that.
Yeah. Be open to, isn't that so true? Oh my gosh.
The more you participate, the more you get. Yeah.
One thing I just, and I know that we do need to jump off here. So just one last comment here. You know, we really do manifest and fulfill on our own prophecies. So we have to know what we think about ourselves and what we think about others, because it will happen.
Absolutely right. Those perspectives are mind-blowing. And yep, absolutely.
Mercer, thank you so much. I loved our conversation. And I'm excited to see you next week at almost.
Hey, can't wait.
Y'all, I will see you tomorrow on The Knowing Show. I'm going to drop the last conversation I had with Mercer here so you can get caught up on the experiential marketing specifically and just the utilization of experience with AI. And then also his website where you can use the leap for your future relationship problems. Woohoo! Me too. Thank you, Mercer.